and Nicole. She is working on being live on YouTube. We are doing something new, and our new show, our new concept was just kind of a joke last week, and we thought, why don't we just roll with it? But it's come into the spiritual sheets, underneath the spiritual sheets, with Nicole and Jeremy. I'm probably saying that really wrong, ain't I, Nicole?
You totally are. You've already gotten into the wine, haven't you?
Yes, I've gotten into the wine tonight. Not really. This is my first glass, but I'm always kind of drunk in some ways, spirit or whatever, happiness. It's been a really good day, so let's just put it that way. And the idea with this, Nicole, right, was that we were just going to have like casual conversations about anything, and we already like to do live shows and and talk about different concepts, whether it be spiritual or psychology or just relationships and stuff like that. And you and I have gone through hell really in the last year with things that have happened to us. And, so one of the things I was doing research on, I'm creating a soft skills course for work. And at my job, we have some interesting dynamics where people are not talking to each other, and, they talk behind each other's backs and, that kind of stuff. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go into this book that I read a long time ago called Crucial Conversations. And basically it's a group of social scientists that break down the process of communication and passive aggressive behaviors. And so the idea of what I was trying to get at here is that the one story, the lecture that I sent Nicole earlier, is that he's mad at his wife because she basically says to him, I don't like it when you do this. And he took offense to it. And then he gets so mad at her after the argument, he goes and he's like, I'm going to school her on how to treat me. And he goes and he sleeps on the couch. He basically thinks he's torturing her. And then the very next night, they go through the day and they're being nice to each other for their kids, but basically they're still mad at each other. And he goes and he sleeps in bed with her the next day, but he's just going to sleep on one side of the bed and he's going to turn his back to her. He's not going to touch her and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to show her, and eventually she's going to come over here because she's going to really see the error of her ways. And this is the story that's going on in his brain. And the truth is that the very next day, something just hits him. And it's not about being right or wrong. It's about the fact that the night before, when she wouldn't come over, he was like, I can't even understand why I married her. Like, I can't think of one good thing about this woman that I can adore her about. And then the very next day, when he really started allowing his pride and his ego to kind of simmer down a little bit, and start looking at the story that he was telling himself, then he went and he sat to talk to his wife. And then all of a sudden, he remembered all the things he loved about her, and that anger was no longer there. And what Crucial Conversations is about is immediately when he started having the story built within his mind that says, I'm right, you're wrong, instead of saying, hey, why don't I try to see it from my wife's perspective? It's not necessarily about compromise. It's about creating a shared space of communication to where you can come up with the shared ideas of where you're coming from, and then talk in a safe space about what your stories are. My story is that in the wife's case, you keep on doing this over again and you don't appreciate me and the things that I do. His story is, you're just trying to lecture me and control me, that kind of stuff. And so, and the truth is that we can either go into communication or we can go into a reactive anger state. And, that's what he went into in this particular instance. So I just thought it would be really kind of a cool, interesting thing to talk about. Since you and I have gone through this on different levels with more than one person, and you and I have had to make that choice.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, what the interesting thing that he talked about in that video that really struck home with me was that there is a lag time. There's a certain amount of time where you can, which will basically determine the way the conversation is going to go. And so if you can wait long enough, you'll be less reactionary, obviously, and likely be able to communicate your thoughts in a better way. So I thought that was interesting, that was one of the, what did he call it? It was a very distinct, determinable factor that was more distinguishable or more valuable than many other factors. Is that time that you wait before you react to what someone says.
Yeah, it's that proactive response that we have because there's an emotional path to a response. So first you have you have a stimulus, something that happens, whether somebody yells at you or betrays you or smacks you in the face or whatever. That's the stimulus. In that moment, there is that story that starts to form, and in that time, before the emotional response starts to happen, you have this lag time, this time to choose. And so in that moment, it doesn't matter if somebody smacks you in the face; it's still incorrect. You still still need to say something about it. However, it's how you react and how you respond to that is what's super important, and that's what he's talking. That was he's
I
talking
just
about.
want to say your nails look great.
Thank you. And I'm covering my face because I'm in bed, and I'm used to being in bed doing videos. Usually, I've got lights all over me. But hey, thanks.
And I just wanted to say hi to Shelly. She just said thanks to us both off YouTube. So we're streaming on 2 channels. We're streaming on your Facebook and my YouTube right now. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, and I'm starting to share on the different pages and groups. So we'll be.
Yeah, so this is a great opportunity for our viewers to ask us questions. If you guys are in bed and you want to jump in bed with us and ask us some spiritual questions, we're here and we can take your questions live. So that's really fun. And I think, communication is such an important aspect of any relationship, especially with relationship of self, and the one thing that I've really realized is it's so important to be honest with yourself about yourself. And when we are willing to get honest about the deep, dark, shadowy parts of us that we don't really like, that's when we really begin to uncover, I think, some of our pearls, like some of the most beautiful parts about us. And I think when you get to a point where you can actually love the parts that you used to hate about yourself, that's when you're making dramatic change in how you live your life, in how you treat yourself and how you treat other people, and what your abilities are in this world to kind of create from, because now you're creating from a very authentic place. You're being really honest with yourself about who you are, and you're loving those parts. And I think that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, when you think about that loving of your inner world, there's so much dialogue going on in your life, in your mind. And so we look at ourselves in the mirror and we think, oh, I'm not attractive enough, or when we compare ourselves to what we think is attractive. And then we think we're not smart enough, and then we compare ourselves to what is not smart enough. And those are all stories that are forming in our brain. And the sad part about that is that those stories become these boxes in our head that say, I can't do something, or I can't be this, or I can't go and I can't talk to that person, or I can't go for that job, and I can't do for this. And the stories in our brain, the things you're just talking about, Nicole, is it's really interesting because we can actually go into those and say, no, that's not true. It's not true. I deserve the best that the world can offer. And because of that, I deserve to be happy. I deserve to have a good relationship. I deserve to have a successful career and something that I really actually enjoy doing. And so that inner dialogue, even though I think it's super important to have those, all those programming, so we can work through them. I don't think we have to live by those lies that we've told ourselves, and so or that the world has told us, what the television or our teachers and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a big one. Breaking down the social constructs, the imposed constructs of society, of how we're supposed to live our lives. That's something I've really pushed back against my entire life. I've always been kind of like the one who wants to challenge authority. I kind of got in trouble in school a little bit, unfortunately, to my parents' dismay. But I always. But I think that's a good thing. I think we should always be challenging authority and not challenging it in a really abusive way, but ask questions. And I think for me, I always questioned this idea that we have to follow this paved out road, you know, that constitutes going to school, going maybe to secondary education, whatever is college, university, getting a good job, you know, moving up some sort of a ladder, whether it's a corporate ladder or anything like that, and getting married and having kids, and it's all going to be done in this routine. And I just never resonated with it. And it's why I dropped out of university after 2 years, because I just wasn't resonating with it, and went to massage therapy college and just decided to go into more of the alternative health field. And then, you know, one day walked into work after, like, you know, working 5 years without a vacation, and said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I moved down to the Cayman Islands and lived on a beach for almost 10 years. And that was, you know, just me kind of saying no to what people were telling me I should do. And I actually got a lot of pushback from some of my closest friends. I had one of my closest friends, which she still is, I love her dearly, but she's a very A-type personality like me, and very organized, a little bit OCD on certain things. And she's like, well, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? You can't just go live on a beach. Like, where do you expect your job to be in 5 years? Or like, what are you going to do with a family? And it was just question after question. And I just thought, well, I don't know. I kind of just want to figure it out as I go. And I think there's this notion that we have to have it all figured out. And that gets imposed on us in high school, you know, where like we need to know what we want to study, and we need to know what we want our career to be by the time we're 18. And there's a lot of pressure to not go with the flow.
Absolutely. And I'll give this is actually a funny story. Well, most people that follow my channel know that in 2012 I quit my job and I went on a 4-month book tour, and I spent my savings to do it. We're in 22 states, me and Justin, my best friend, and we just, until I was broke, we traveled and sold books basically. And so I remember going on a date about a month before I left with this guy, and he says to me, "You're gonna what? You're going to quit your career and go and sell books randomly and camp along the way in a van?" I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. He said, first of all, why a van? I'm like, I said, if I could make it a Volkswagen van, it would be even better. And literally I called him to go on a second date, and he never called me. And so I thought, I can't not do this. This is one thing. Like, I will not. I mean, of course, you know, there's sensibility. You need to pay your bills and stuff like that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about flow. And so, and the truth is that when I came off the tour, I had money, I had a job, I had a place to stay. Everything was taken care of. And yes, I did have to drive around in a van for a couple of years, because in my mind, I thought I would just trade it in when I got back. And who fucking cares? I mean, it's just not that big of a deal. And so we're hung up on this idea of you quit your job and you spent your savings. I mean, like, well, I believe we live more than once, but in this particular body named Jeremy, he's only going to live once. And so you might as well live it to your fullest. And so, and I know that when I was younger, all I thought about was traveling and being out there and being free. And the only other thing I thought of was I want to share that with somebody and travel with them and do things with them and build that kind of life where, yes, I have a home to come to and stuff like that. And the reason why I'm saying this is while you guys are sitting there watching this, I know there's something that you want to do in life, but you're sitting there telling yourself that I can't do it because I got to do this. And I'm not saying go out and quit your job like I did. If you've got kids, I mean, you have a responsibility. And senses. So don't go and just, you know, give up your income. Well, maybe you can. Maybe it'll work out for you. If you really feel it, do it. But I'm just saying that I have responsibilities myself, and I make sure that they're taken care of. But I also work on the things that make me happy. And if that makes any sense whatsoever, and you know, I mean, like Nicole, I packed up my car, moved to Virginia Beach, you know, 12 years ago, and so that was quite amazing. And then I went to Baltimore, and then I lived in Philadelphia and stuff like that. And I've done that many, many times in my life. And why not? I mean, when I die, I'm not going to look back and say I regretted anything.
Yeah. You brought up something interesting because I just recorded a podcast episode with Maureen St. Germain last night. And so her episode's coming out not this week but next week, and she did an Akashic Records reading for one of our skeptics. And luckily, like, to be honest, we're really lucky because it's an exclusive, because she'll never do it again, not because it didn't go well, but because she promised herself that she would never do Akashic Record readings for entertainment purposes. And I guess because we were going to be doing it for our show, it would be considered entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
But she checked in with her higher self when we asked her if she would do it, and she said, yeah, no, I'm being told to do it. And she was really glad that she did it in the end, because it was a great experience to get that kind of recording of a skeptic's first impression of having their Akashic Records read. And anyway, what we talked about is that we talked about past lives, and we talked about how there are so many things that we're working with people in our world right now. We have relationships with someone, and sometimes things just may go sideways, and we don't understand why, because we don't understand what we did. Maybe they're really mad at us and we don't really understand what we did. We talked about how there are issues from past life experiences that you're working out in this lifetime and have nothing to do with what's happened in this lifetime. And then we talked about how, before we come into this world, into this particular embodiment in this lifetime, that we choose our soul lessons, right? A lot of us know this if we believe in reincarnation. But what really struck me was how we will choose, like, for instance, in one lifetime I was a queen. I may then in this lifetime choose to be a peasant so that I can completely understand the opposite life of what it was to be royalty, and really have the experience of the other side so I understand both sides. And you forget all of the lessons or all of the skills that came with, say, being a queen, all of those things, and you come into this lifetime not knowing any of it, and you're completely a peasant, and you don't know what it is to have money, you don't know what it is to have power, you don't know what it is to have people looking up to you as a leader. And I thought that was just so interesting that we can choose that and come into this lifetime with a blank slate of so many things that we've already learned. And it can really change the way we are in this lifetime and give us a completely new experience, to really experience it for the first time. And I think that's so cool.
That is really cool. And I have to say that when you first started talking about a queen, because I've been to so many drag shows over the past weekend, that I thought you were talking about that type of queen. But I'm getting a dirty look because somebody here is a drag queen. But but what I want to talk about with past lives is this: so there is this thing, what is called generational, or there's what is called generational post-traumatic stress, which is in the Bible they talk about this, we inherit the sins of our fathers. And so let's just put that bit on hold just for a second. But also that, let's say Nicole was that queen, and she was, let's say there was a revolution or something happened as a result, and it was very traumatizing in her lifetime. So yeah, she was the queen, but something major happened in that lifetime. She actually brings that forward into this lifetime in the embodiment of Nicole, which I think is sort of what you're talking about. And then that's what is called karma. So karma is cause and effect. Something happens and there's an effect that comes back. So, and why that's important to understand is that you can bring all these traumas. Let's say that in 1200 AD or whatever, something happened to somebody, they were raped or molested, or they were abused or whatever. They bring that forward. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is so important to understand is that as you go through this lifetime, and you don't understand, like, I had a really good childhood, and you're like, I don't understand why I have these things that I'm doing. It's because there is a karmic tie that is still causing some kind of PTSD within this lifetime. Now, the generational post-traumatic stress is this, and this is not spiritual. This is actually, Carl Jung talked about this, and many other psychologists talked about this, is that as a result of, let's say you are the descendant of people that lived the Great Depression.
Mm-hmm.
And so then your mother, your great great grandmother or your grandmother raised your mother, and they are still living in that mindset of, we had a lot and then we lost everything. And so then they start, that poor mentality still passes on from generation to generation. And so and I understand this very well, because my mother was a single mother, and she was 17 when I was born, and my father was 16 when I was born. And my grandmother, my mother's mother, was a child of the Great Depression. My great great grandmother went on the Trail of Tears, and was Native American and then passed as white. And so you can imagine all this trauma from this generational post-traumatic stress, that when Jeremy was born, this is how I was raised, based on, hey, my mother said, you have to make sure you're careful and all that kind of stuff. And, you need to make sure you get a good education so you can support your family. And all those things are true, except that you don't want to do it with fear. Remember, fear is false evidence appearing real. And so and I'm not talking about the fear of walking in front of a Mack truck. That's just not fear. That's just stupid. That's a total difference. I'm talking about the fear that you have something you want to do and you're afraid to do it because you think there's limitations. And so that generational post-traumatic stress is interesting, because you will see that people start living the life of their parents and their family lineage. And so, and it comes down to, if you really think about it, there's a lot of habits you have of your parents, and you can break those. I mean, and incidentally, your parents aren't necessarily going to be unhappy, because maybe at first it'll be new to them, but all parents want something for their child. They want them to have a better life than that they have, that they actually have. And so in reality, at first they might see, well, I don't know what you're doing, I don't fully understand. But when they see you successful and happy in it, then they're going to be like, hey, guess what? I was wrong. And I've seen that time and time again with parents, and including my own mother. I mean, she loved me very, very dearly. She didn't understand the two tours as a musician. She was very proud of me, but she didn't understand why I was so impetuous, and like when I was 20 wanted to move to San Francisco, and that kind of stuff. So but in reality, once they see you successful, it's very powerful to watch that, and they make the transition. So we have to break the ties and live our own lives, and not necessarily live the lives that our parents lived. And then that's how we make people proud, because we're individuals.
And I've got a couple of very beautiful spiritual ladies here talking about cord cutting, and how it really helped them to do the cord cutting so that they were able to move forward.
Yes.
As your own individual self, and do what it is that's in your own heart. Live the life for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sam, I know you've gone through very hard times, and very much love you, and I know that it gets better each day for you. So.
Cord cutting is no joke. Cord cutting is very powerful and very important. Everyone needs to learn how to do their cord cutting, because, I mean, Jeremy, some of my very more personal experiences as of late. I've been doing a lot of videos on negative entities and things like that, and I've had, and that's just like, negative entities. It's like, people in your life who might be toxic, or maybe you've outgrown the relationship, whatever it may be. And I had some major cords to cut with some people, and it changed my life. I can't believe how much my own happiness, my own well-being, like, just skyrocketed. Like, I just the last 6 months of last year, of 2017, were really hard for me. It was I went through a lot of ups and downs. I just felt like it was on a constant roller coaster, where I would be feeling great, and then all of a sudden, like, really, really low. And I went through started having feelings of depression, which it's not like me to feel that ever. And I didn't know what was going on. And now I realize, now that I've kind of removed some things from my life and cut some cords, I now see where that was. And it's so important to do that. I mean, everything has been like just getting better and better and better. It's been amazing to watch and witness. And so for anyone out there, if you're going through something, whether it's certain relationships with people, perhaps your health isn't great, or you're just not feeling yourself, there may be things outside, whether it's negative entities working in you, negative entities working through people that you care about. Maybe it's just toxic people in your life. Cut those cords. They will save your happiness. They will save your joy, your love. Like, you will just feel 1,000 times better.
Yeah, and so those are the cords are basically that emotional attachment or that spiritual attachment to other people, and not just entities or anything like that. I mean, it's really just about entities, yes, but like Nicole was saying, that as that energy or that spiritual or emotional attachment is attached to that person, you're still picking up all of their negative stuff towards you. And it's interesting because have you ever just like moved on, and like a month or 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 months or even 6 years later, you start to feel like this toxic feeling, but you're still feeling, you start thinking about a person that hurt you. And that's because that emotional cord is attached still, and you have to let go of it. And every morning you can just say in your meditation or whatever, and say, I let go of everything that does not serve me anymore, and whatever does serve me will come back. And even let go of the people you love, the people you get along with, let them go too, because if they're supposed to be there, they're going to come back. I mean, and that's the truth. You cannot lose anything that was meant to be in your life. If it's not meant to be in your life, let them go. I mean, let them go. Let them not, and I'm not saying let them go in the let them go and get the fuck out of my life type of thing. I'm saying let them go for their best interest and your best interest. Because the truth is that if somebody needs to leave my life, I want them to leave and be happy, and I want to be happy. I don't want them to leave and be miserable. I mean, that's just not, I don't really think that's a great place to be, because if I want them to be miserable, then chances are I'm feeling miserable, and I don't have time to live that life anymore. And so, and like Nicole said, we've gone through some crazy stuff over the last year. I mean, betrayal, watching people manipulating other people, that kind of stuff. And so, by the way, Eddie, I wanted to just point it out. No, I'm not afraid of my social media pages being shut down. And the truth is that I understand that that's happening for people like Nicole and I that come out and speak the truth about things, or about how to empower ourselves. I do understand that, especially YouTube is shutting people down and censoring things, but let them, because I'll just start another page, or I'll go on another platform.
I actually just started a BitChute page today, and I'm just starting to transfer everything over to BitChute because I'll be honest, I don't like censorship. I don't like being told what I can and cannot think, what I can and cannot say. If you don't like it, you have every right to not listen. And I don't like supporting these mega corporations who think they can just push everyone around because they have a monopoly over everything. And I think that if we all start to come together and we start transferring our stuff, because you know what? The dollar speaks very loudly, and I am okay to move everything over somewhere else. So I've started to make that transfer.
Yeah, and I've gone through the same thing with my YouTube videos where they've censored my videos, and I had one where last year, and it's been not uncensored, it's been unmonetized, and I said in that the title of it is "Religion is full of shit," and so I guess because I said religion, I guess that's offensive, and advertisers don't want to advertise. But I mean, the truth is that anything that controls another person and tells them how to think is full of shit. I mean,
the reality is though, I had a video that got demonetized on my 6 tips for meditation. And I'm like, what? It got demonetized within a minute.
How dare you teach meditation?
Yeah.
How dare you? You could offend people. And it happens all the time. And it's not just us. I watch like YouTubers like Shane Dawson. They're getting their stuff unmonetized as well. And so, as a matter of fact, there's a YouTuber out there named Matthew Lush, and he had one of his entire pages shut down because Lush Cosmetics wanted his name. They wanted it for his YouTube, so he had like almost 1 million subscribers, and they basically shut down his YouTube channel so Lush Cosmetics could get his.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
I mean, there's all kinds of BS out there. It's like we were saying with companies, and they get to be too big. And YouTube was such a great platform at one time, and I still think it is, except that now there is a lot of censorship going on, and it's not right. I mean, these platforms were meant for people that aren't CNN broadcasters and ABC and that kind of stuff to actually start talking about what we notice to be true. And we know there's some messed up things out there. And like I said on my video last week, it kind of got messed up. I said, I am no longer a conspiracy theorist. I am a skeptic. I am a philosophical skeptic. And that we were talking about earlier about questioning everything. And that's the truth. It's like, we need to be questioning the system. That we need to be questioning the system when there are people starving in our streets, when we are starting wars. And I don't want to get too far into this. We're starting wars over oil. That's unacceptable. And that's not a cool way to live. Or, you know, in order for us to go down that road, we need to be okay inside of ourselves, because I do know something from being a civil rights activist. When I was doing activist work and standing up for LGBT rights, and picketing, and somebody was throwing things at me, I couldn't go beat them up out on the street. It's just not appropriate, and so it doesn't serve your cause. No. So what that understand is, when you end the war on the inside, and you can stand up and speak the truth, and not want to lash out at the people causing the harm, you want to hold them accountable, but you don't want to beat them up or murder them and stuff like that.
No.
That's a total. This is way off topic from what we were going, but we're in bed and we're just kind of going slow.
We're just going with it.
And so, I mean, that's just kind of things that when we're talking about censorship, and you know, there's a lot of things that are going on right now that are not appropriate, and there's very bad people doing very bad things to our world, and there's very greedy people, basically taking all the resources and not leaving very much for a lot of other people. So,
and not only that, but when we start talking about truth,
your sound just went out, huh?
My sound's gone?
Oh, now you're coming back.
Okay. When we start talking about truth, it's gone?
Yeah, it's just like fading out. I don't know if it's my internet connection or.
Oh, it's because you know what? I have Can you hear me all right now?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
You talk.
I'm sorry, the comment was, do we have that? Yeah, Eddie, I know her sound's out. We're not sure what's going on. Maybe it's the sheets thing. It's you're like really. I'm not sure what's going on. It's really weird. So while Nicole's working on her sound, there was a comment about Walmart and Starbucks, and yes, I really don't like Corey. I don't like to go into Walmart or Starbucks either, because of the fact that their entire business model is to suppress local businesses and also not pay their employees hardly anything whatsoever. I mean, it's not acceptable, the fact that Walmart intentionally hires part-time people and pays them very little, and they hire them part-time so they don't have to pay them insurance benefits or any type of benefits at all. That's not acceptable. I mean, and you make enough money. It's like when I found out the United Healthcare CEO made $68 million in 2016, that really made me mad. I was like, really? That's not acceptable. That is not acceptable for you to make that kind of money. And some people say we live in a capitalist economy. Well, that's great, but there's a point in time where we have to say, how much money do you really need? I mean, I don't have tons of money, but I seem to be able to do what I want. And so that's just the kind of thing and that's a spiritual principle, by the way. When you know that you have enough, things will always be provided for. So when you're hoarding it, that goes against natural law. And natural law says whatever you put out there, you get out back tenfold. So if you're generous, and not with the intention of receiving anything in return, because if you're doing it, I'm going to do this so I can get more back, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. But as you give with your heart, then things just are going to work out for you, and things just flow. I support Nicole and her sound. So, do you want to just kind of cut it here for the week and come back next week? And Well, I'm just gonna go ahead and end the show. Much love to everybody. Peace. And then Nicole and I will be back on next week. And I'm sure we'll come up. If you guys have any topics that you want to talk about, just message either Nicole or I on Facebook. And I think some of this show is going to be just like random talk and what's inspiring us from that week. But yeah, we'll probably do it on Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock, unless 9 o'clock Eastern, unless something else comes because Nicole's in Colorado. So much love, everybody. Bye bye.